Hello and welcome to Fight for the House. I'm Jack LaMorte with Daniel Brinkman. This is episode number 13, and today we'll be talking about Pennsylvania's 13th Congressional District. We have Republican Jeremy Schaffer facing off against Chris DeLuzio, who is the Democrat. Dan, do you want to open up talking about the seat?
Yeah, so the Pennsylvania 17th, and I think Pennsylvania only has 17 congressional districts. I think they used to have 18, but they just lost a seat. So it's a suburban seat. It's nestled around the outskirts of Pittsburgh, and the seat is currently an open one. And that is because Democrat Conor Lamb decided to run for U.S. Senate and lost that nomination to I forget the guy's first name, Fetterman. Is it
Yeah,
John
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 Fetterman.
John Fetterman?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna call him like Kevin Federline. I don't know if you're old enough to remember Britney Spears's. Did she marry him or?
I don't know.
Yeah, but I was gonna call him Federline. But anyway, but Lamb was viewed as a rising star in the Democrat Party, and until he took a shot and missed. I mean, maybe he'll try to get back into Congress or try to do something else. But yeah, that's the vagaries of political life for you. You want to tell us a little bit about Jeremy Schaffer, Jack?
Yeah, our Republican nominee for Pennsylvania 17 is actually a self-funder and a successful businessman. Jeremy Schaffer is married with 5 kids. He has a PhD in electrical engineering and founded a company that developed software. He actually built his business from scratch, and he's at his best when he's talking about how he came from the bottom and moved up. He started out just mowing lawns as a kid, and he has previously served in a local elected office and ran unsuccessfully for state senate. Although unsuccessful in his last attempt, he was the best performing Republican on the ballot in nearly every precinct in his previous races. This speaks to his ability to work hard as a candidate, which is, as we've mentioned, very rare. Um, it's a rare quality to find in these candidates. Schaffer speaks well on economic issues, as you can imagine, as he's built up his business. And he's actually somewhat passionate on term limits. Although when he's speaking, Dan and I have noticed he sounds a bit canned and over rehearsed. Um, and so that can be kind of boring as a candidate. Do you want to talk a little bit about stuff like that, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, listening to this guy, he's way too over rehearsed. I mean, boring candidates do better in the suburbs because suburban people don't really go for the firebrand people near as much. But man, this guy uses $10 words when a 2-cent word will do. Uh Man, I don't know. Like it, and he has some good strengths that he could talk about. Like we mentioned the thing about coming up from nothing. But if you listen to him, it's like mining for gold to find those moments. Like he hardly ever talks about things like that. And he had his wife, he did an interview with this one guy, and then the next time he had his wife with him. We're like, all right, this should be better. He's got the wife. She can't be as boring as he is. So they're describing their kids, and I don't want to be mean, but like she uses, instead of saying like we got kids in all these different age groups, she says we have children in every stage of of growth and development.
Oh,
Like, yeah, I'm sure that's just how they are, but man, like really not going for the working class vote with that type of gobbledygook. I mean, he answers some questions that way too. He was asked some question about some trans issue, and he gave some mealy mouthed answer on that. Which I mean, it's kind of an issue. You do want to dance around in a competitive general, but like, man, like you could have just gone for an easy answer with like, yeah, you probably shouldn't have guys playing in girls' sports. I mean, that would have done the trick, and I don't think anybody's going to vote against you for that, other than the 10 people in that district that think they're a chick when they're a guy. I don't know. Uh, not
yeah.
And
it's just
he's got a lot good going for him too. Like he overperforms in precincts. I mean, that's very rare to see. I don't know. You want to talk a little bit more about Jack?
yeah, I mean, it's just it's sad to see, especially in the time and age where we see a lot of firebrand candidates, whether they're radical or not. There's just a lot more candidates that are better speakers. But I mean, I guess he's smart. So I mean, that's good, but you're not going to capture the hearts of the voters, which is honestly the most important thing.
Yeah, I mean, prudence is a thing. I mean, you should be a prudent candidate in what you say and don't say, but you should also be frank with the voters too. And I hope he's gotten better since the videos that we saw, but man, I mean, just speak plainly and cut out the $10 words.
Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit about Chris DeLuzio, Dan, the Democratic challenger?
Yeah, he's somebody you couldn't really describe as boring. He actually comes off as kind of a firebrand, actually. If you listen to his election night when he won the primary, he's going after everybody under the sun, including Schaffer, who he characterized as an extremist and all this other stuff. Which, I mean, I hope he goes after Schaffer as an extremist because, like, anybody that listens to him is not going to come away with
No.
that. So, I mean, DeLuzio has also spent his career pushing basically liberal agenda items. He worked as a labor lawyer and a voting rights attorney. Um, he was a graduate of Georgetown Law. So, I mean, he's no stranger to the swamp, as it were. He's also a veteran, though, which goes in the plus column for him. Back in the negative column for him, he's a first-time candidate, but from his activism in Democrat politics, I don't think you can describe him in any way as a neophyte. Uh, there really doesn't seem to be anything mealy-mouthed or unorthodox about DeLuzio as far as Democrat policy positions go. He's pro-abortion, aggressively pro-labor, derived much of his support in the primary from union endorsements. And he goes a little bit off the deep end on some of his characterizations of Republicans, calling them threats to the Republic and all that post-Jan 6 stuff. But
Um,
oh, go
yeah,
ahead.
I have a question about the union support though, because I remember in 2016 and 2020, um, a lot of the like Fox News and stuff like that were saying that Trump was getting that union vote. Is that not true?
I think he gets the rank and file voters because I mean,
Okay.
if you remember when we looked at the Frank Mervan district,
Mm-hmm.
I believe Trump overperformed Mervan there by quite a bit. So I think the deal that some of these union guys are making is, all right, yeah, we know you guys are basically Republicans nationally, but these Congress people help us out. So how about voting our way on this race? Which, I mean, as far as practical local politics go, is kind of a trade that you've seen. Like it's more of an old school thing that you used to see all the time. I
Yeah.
mean, from working precincts in my neighborhood, it was always, well, I'm not going to push Romney or Trump or whoever on you as somebody that lives in my neighborhood, but here's some local guys, and I hope you vote for them because, I mean, you're not going to sway people on the big ticket items. They already got their mind made up. So why even try unless you're going to have some long drawn out ideological conversation with them? So I think that's what's
Right.
happening in these unions is they've kind of given up on the national thing and they're just like, all right, well, we need these congressmen, vote for these congressmen. But I don't know how tenable that is because
Yeah.
people in those jobs are becoming more and more disillusioned with the liberal nonsense. I mean, one of my close friends is works in the steel mills in that Indiana 1 district, and he's as Republican as it gets. So I don't know how tenable it is, but
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, hopefully it doesn't continue to go to the Democrats in the congressional elections, but we'll see.
yeah, we're gonna find out in about a month and a half, I guess, right?
Yeah, it's closing in fast, isn't it?
Yes, it is. But you want to talk about
Um,
the fundraising a little bit?
yeah, so on the fundraising side, in a rare change of pace, the GOP has a decided advantage. Schaffer has loaned himself $1 million, and after spending 492,000 in the primary to boost his name recognition, which we always say is very important, he still has, get this, 937,000 on hand as of the end of June.
That's great.
DeLuzio, yeah, DeLuzio has much less to boast of after burning through 573,000 in his primary, and he only has 348,000 on hand. Those are some big numbers. I mean, we see the Democrats outperform the Republicans all the time
Yeah.
by large numbers like this, but rarely do we see the Republican with this type of numbers.
No, and it sounds like the money can keep flowing with Schaffer. I mean, that's the thing that these candidates in the RNC and those guys always worry about, because fundraising is the hardest thing for candidates. Because I mean, who likes asking people to give them money?
Right.
You feel like you're begging. You feel like I don't know. There's like an intellectual hang up with a lot of candidates with fundraising, and for self funders, you don't have to worry about that. Um, there's a little bit of a trade off with it, though. Self funders tend to be less compelling candidates, especially
Mm-hmm.
if they're from like long term generational wealth if they didn't work for it. Schaffer, on the other hand, has worked for it, but the longer they're wealthy, the worse it is, because there's kind of like a detachment that comes with it.
Yeah, I would definitely have to say, with more of the firebrand candidates, although it's not really working with DeLuzio. Although, I mean, I guess these numbers were earlier on because it was from June. But
Yeah.
I think the firebrand candidates are definitely better fundraisers
Oh, yeah. Especially with the
versus,
small
yeah,
dollar donors, 100%.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And so, I mean, Schaefer's lucky that he's rich. Well, I guess he's not lucky; he worked for it. But
Yeah.
in terms of the campaign, it definitely helps him a lot that he's rich because he can self fund, and he doesn't have to worry about being that firebrand candidate. And in terms of fundraising,
And it
will
just
it transfer
it
the
takes
votes? We'll
so
see.
much time as a candidate to dial for those dollars or to shake those people down. So I
Right?
mean, the fact that we already know that Schaefer's good at the door and winning precincts, and now he doesn't have to focus on the biggest drag as a candidate. I mean, that's a really good sign for him.
Yeah, that's true.
The other thing I'll note on the fundraising side is DeLuzio, he burned through a lot in his primary. He did have a
Hmm.
more contentious primary than Schaffer. It sounds like Schaffer kind of got through his on more or less a walk. So I hope that doesn't give DeLuzio too much of a name rec advantage. Hopefully, Schaffer was out hustling during his primary as well. But it sounds like it's a race we can definitely win. Well, what are your final thoughts on it, Jack?
Yeah, I definitely agree. You kind of see it a lot. You see the firebrand candidate win in the primaries, which with Schaefer not having that trying of a primary, he was able to pull through. But then you'll kind of see the more moderate win the general. Would you agree with that statement or no?
Yeah, I mean, especially in districts like this. I mean, this
Yeah,
is this is a district that I mean, the suburban districts used to be the GOP's bread and butter pre-Trump. Um, Trump kind of turned off some of the suburban women, but I mean, now we're back in an off-year election. Trump's not on the ballot, so hopefully you'll see a snapback in a lot of these districts, and we're really seeing that.
yeah, I totally agree. Do you want to talk a little bit about the polls though, as we close in on November?
Um, do you have the poll information in front of you, Jack?
I do, I
Okay,
do.
great.
So Project 538 has DeLuzio winning 73 in 100. and Schaffer winning 27 and 100. But Politico has the race as a toss-up. So even though DeLuzio has a large lead in 538, what were you saying about 538's possible bias?
Um, I wouldn't say they're too like lib biased. Maybe they're like, I would guess Nate Silver's kind of slightly liberal, but
Uh-huh.
the numbers that they're plugging in right now are incorporating uh, what's called a ballot advantage on the generic ballot. So those numbers up until like the last week were basically 50-50. Sometimes you'd have the Dems up a couple points. Since we're after Labor Day now, voters' minds tend to solidify once you get closer to election. They start actually thinking about it. So now you're seeing consistently in a lot of polls where Republicans are up 4 points, 5 points, 6 points, 2 points, all over the map. But like there's been a definite shift in the last week toward Republicans there. So hopefully that should push a lot of these districts where he might have Democrats favored in like 60 or 70 or 80 out of 100 models back to a more even footing.
Yeah, so I mean, I hope that Schaffer can pull it out.
Yeah,
I don't know, do you want to
I think he's
Yeah, go
got a
ahead.
good I think he's got a good track record as a candidate. He just hopefully he starts talking more about things that make him seem like a regular person.
Yeah.
But thank you for listening to another episode of Dan and Jack talking congressional districts, and hope you'll join us again. Thanks. God bless.